Good morning. We are in the book of Hebrews, which, as a quick reminder, is a book in the New Testament, in the Bible. It's written as a sermon, a Jewish sermon written in the first century. It's a very profound, very theologically rich work. It is one of the more practical works in terms of trying to shape how we think about God and the call to follow Him. We just looked at chapter 3, which had some pretty scary stuff in it. It ended with this warning about unbelief that kept the people from entering into the promised land. This is an allusion back to the Jews who left Egypt, the old 10 plagues, parting the Red Sea, right? They get the 10 commandments. They're supposed to then go into the promised land, but they send the spies. Moses sends the 12 spies into the promised land. They come back. The majority say, we can't do it, we'll die. The minority report, Joshua and Caleb, says we can do it, but they decide not to do it. And so these people are told that they cannot then enter into the rest of God. They don't get to go into the promised land. They're going to spend 40 years in the wilderness wandering around. So that is all told as a backdrop to say, don't be like them. Right? Don't be full of unbelief, or you also will not be able to enter into the rest of God. So we've got to make certain that our hearts are attuned to God, that our hearts are soft to the things of God. We've got to make certain that we're doing the right things, that we're caring for each other, we're roped up together, all that stuff we were looking at last week. Today, we come at this from the other side. As we push in deeper, we get a more positive message. So as opposed to the warning that we just had, don't be like this group, we now get this invitation to enter into God's rest. And the word rest occurs 11 times in chapter 4 of Hebrews. So that's a lot, and it's used in different ways. We just have to recognize that the word rest gets used in a variety of different ways by different people at different times. So the first way we think about rest is just, physical rest. We sit down at the end of the day. We stop exercising and we're now going to relax and rest. We're going to go to sleep, and there's physical rest. Okay, so that's obviously one of the key meanings of the word rest. There's a second meaning of the word rest, which refers to a more spiritual being at peace. So Augustine famously said, our hearts were made for thee, and they are restless until they find their peace with God. And so this means more than just relaxing physically. This is talking about some sense of we have a quiet soul. Right? We are at peace with the world. We are at peace with other people. So that's a big topic. Obviously, the Jews, when they were slaves, knew nothing about the first kind of rest. And for that matter, when they're wandering around in the wilderness, the desert for 40 years, that was not a particularly restful time. So there's a third way that the word rest gets used, and this is sort of a play on both sort of a combination on both the physical rest and also the spiritual rest. And there's a sense in which hardwired into the universe is this idea that there are times of work and then there are times of restoration. And this is both physical restoration and it's also emotional, spiritual restoration. So in Hebrews 4:4, we get a quote out of Genesis chapter 2. We say on the seventh day, God rested from his work. Now, God did not need to rest. It was done as foreshadowing our need to rest. And just it's congruent with the cadence of the way God created the world. There's day and there's night. There's weeks. There's times when we're on and there's times when we are to be off. And this idea obviously plays into this whole idea of a Sabbath. So we're not very good at this. I'm not very good at this. We sort of don't know how to be. We sort of really only know how to do. And this world we live in tends to be very invasive. The volume and velocity of culture, there's this stuff going on all the time. And so we don't necessarily reflect, we don't go deep, we don't pause, we don't reflect. But that is part of God's gift to us, that is part of God's design. And ultimately, this rest is a foreshadowing of the full restoration that comes in heaven. So, we move into chapter 4. Hebrews has got some very discouraging things, has got some very encouraging things. We get some encouragement that that there is rest in the most profound sense as part of God's plan for us now and especially in the future. Have a good day.